So what really happened to Sudiksha Kanaki? Let's bring back in private investigator Manuel Gomez, who's been following the case from its start. And I want to welcome in celebrity attorney John Phillips. Manuel, let me begin with you, please. Multiple days you're looking at this, learning more information incrementally. Where are your thoughts today about her?
Well, my thoughts are, unfortunately, Julie, is that this case is going to now, in the next about 5 or 6 days, going to stop. They're going to stop searching the waters because they got to the point where they realize they're not going to find her. And it's going to become a cold case file. And it's going to become a cold case file deliberately because the country does not want it to be labeled as a murder or a kidnapping or sex trafficking, because that affects their tourism. And this is why, when you go to the U.S. Department of State website, there's a 2024 trafficking in person in Dominican Republic document, which shows from 2022 to 2024, they've had 1,500 people be kidnapped in this country, and that their police are poorly trained and don't have the skills to do this type of investigation. This is in the United States Department of State report for all Americans to see on every country, and we don't utilize it. Unfortunately, this family needs to do a GoFundMe and get ready to take this to the next level, where private investigators will conduct this investigation for them, because the country eventually is going to stop within a week or so, and that's my prediction.
Great points, Manuel. I'm surprised you haven't gotten a call yet. I bet you will. And that's where things need to go with people who are going to take this seriously. I have to wonder if it was taken seriously and if too much time went by. I mean, Manuel, at first they said, oh, drowning, and it seemed kind of dismissive. You know, are they now at a disadvantage because of how they viewed the case from the outset, not thinking this could be a homicide?
Absolutely. They wasted time, and this is precious time. When you got a case like this, it's like milk. The longer you wait, it goes bad. You have to be on it from the point, and it should have been labeled either a possible murder, so they could have conducted the investigation on the sea and on the land. Instead, we focused all this time on the land, and now, on the sea. And if she is on the land kidnapped, the kidnappers had well enough time to make sure that we don't find her at all. Again, this is going to be like another Natalie Holloway case where the person is not found, and eventually down the road, you might have somebody get arrested. But in this case, I don't see that because they're not putting the energy to that.
Excellent points, Manuel. We'll get back to the investigation in a moment. John Phillips, you're another one who I haven't, I'm surprised hasn't gotten a call yet from someone here, either the Kanaki family or the Ribe family. So let's take these in turn. So in terms of Sudiksha Kanaki's family, they're putting out a plea publicly, legally. What, if anything else, can they do right now?
It's very difficult because the family's in Virginia. She went to Pitt, and all of this happened in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And so you've got multiple jurisdictions. You've got, international searches that you can't control. The reason the show is called 48 Hours, to his great point, is the evidence, it disappears within 48 hours. And so, they seem to be linear focused on this being some spring break thing gone wrong. And, that's what happens when you mix alcohol and hooking up. And that's not really where the evidence is pointing. That's the convenient blame to avoid an international incident.
Yes, well said, John. And then, so follow-up for you. So Joshua Ribe, I want to be very clear, not considered a suspect, considered a person of interest right now. He's got concerns too, because, and I want to be very clear, this guy, he may have nothing to do with her disappearance. She very well may have drowned, may have been taken by someone, harmed by someone, we don't know. John, his concerns legally, what should he and his family be doing this morning?
He's a resident of the United States, and the Fifth Amendment applies to him no matter where he goes for purposes of this investigation. And they're not going to, bring him back down, I assume, to the Dominican Republic for questioning. And even if he does, he still has the right to speak to a lawyer and to make sure that the information he's putting out there, one, keeps him with a shroud of innocence, two, doesn't get him caught up in some sort of public media, court of public opinion witch hunt. Because at the end of the day, the evidence seems to be that he was just, kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time with a pretty girl. And now he's kind of caught up into the disappearance of that girl. And that's awful.
It really is, John. You're so right. And he's got rights, and cloaked in the presumption of innocence, not charged even, so I want to be super clear with Joshua Rye, but he's a college student as well. He's a senior at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. And a little bit that we know about him, he was a wrestler in high school. So high school athlete and a senior college student there on spring break with his friends as well. Manuel Gomez, talk to me about this person of interest. Is there anything that you've read or seen about him that stands out to you and gives you any more questions that should be asked of him at this time?
Yes, and I do believe that, since he's changed his story 4 times and he knew that she was there, he did not. And nobody's focusing on this point. He did not go to the front desk and say, hey, she went missing. Hey, she was drowning. He said he was hit by a wave and that she was taken by the wave. If that was true, then why didn't he report her missing? He didn't do anything, okay? So this guy, I think, should be really taken in and questioned thoroughly in the U.S. And I think that'll scare him possibly to maybe tell the truth. But on the flip side of that, I pray and I hope the family's listening. Please go set up a GoFundMe. Please put a reward for any information to her possible abduction. Please generate that money, because you are going to need private investigators to go out there and do this case, because this is going to come to a halt within the next 5 to 6 days. They're not going to keep looking in the water.
Yeah, great point, Manuel. Money talks. Bottom line, money talks, and it can be so valuable in getting information for cases. I'm so glad you said that, Manuel. Yes, Crime Stoppers organizations around the country get tips all the time because of those rewards. I used to volunteer with one in North Carolina. It's amazing what they can find out, and anonymous is okay if it leads us in the right direction. John Phillips, talk to me, please, if you would, about any concerns with, agencies, flexing? We got a lot of, hands now cooking in the kitchen. Who do you think is best equipped to be handling this? Is it the FBI, John?
It pretty much has to be at this point, because, look, I've been to the Dominican Republic, and I'll probably go back, so I don't want to insult them too much. But Manuel made a great point about the conflict of interest here. They get millions, if not more, in tourist dollars, and they want it to continue to be safe. Meanwhile, an American tourist has gone missing, and nobody is going to really represent her interests with the state of Virginia. I know they're interested, but they don't have any jurisdiction. The FBI can at least flex its muscle to try to find this out, because we do have a massive interest in protecting our tourists that travel abroad.
We sure do. Well said. Such great insight from you both. John Phillips, you're coming with us. Manuel Gomez, you've got your own cases you're working. Still with me, John Phillips. I want to welcome in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Michael J. Brown. All right, Michael, your thoughts here. Is this theory going to work?
Good morning, everybody. Julie, it's not a bad one. The DNA being on the sheath in and of itself doesn't mean that Kohlberger is the killer. I mean, it simply means that his DNA is on the sheath. As we all know, touch DNA is very easy to transmit. I can touch an object right here in my office. Somebody takes it away. It goes to another state tomorrow, and Mike Brown's DNA is now at a crime scene. Doesn't mean I'm the killer. So the planting aspect is a little suspect. I don't know if that word is being manipulated or not. I think, and I don't want to speak for them, it may be more that his DNA is on the sheath as opposed to it's intentionally placed there by the real killer. But it's definitely an issue. And keep in mind, there's DNA unidentified, male-identified DNA on the glove outside as well as on the railing. So that's interesting, and it's definitely going to be an issue at trial.
Michael, great points. You hit on something that I think is so key for us to explore here. Big difference between a plant or just happen to take an object that somebody else once touched and leave it behind. So let's explore this. So John Phillips, which do you think would be the better route to go? That somebody intentionally wanted to frame Kohberger for doing these murders, or that somebody may have gotten a hold of that K-bar knife that maybe was Kohberger's at some point in time. He had touched the snap on it because it belonged to him, and then that gets left behind, and suddenly everybody thinks that Kohberger must have done it.
I think the issue here is just trying to find a means to the end. Look, Johnny Cochran and Mark Furman are not coming in to save the day like they did with the bloody sock and trying to find somebody to frame for being the one who planted it. But like the judge said, I think it was the judge, if you were killing somebody with a knife, that sheath's probably pretty important. And the fact that his DNA is on the button of that sheath is such a huge piece of evidence, along with, as Michael said, the other DNA, along the chain. But they've just, I think that's one of their worst, if not their worst piece of evidence. And they've got to find another way to get it there.
Yeah, I love the point you made about this isn't the O.J. Simpson case, where Mark Furman was a perfect person for the defense team to blame, because all of the stuff that came out about him being racist was horrible. And it was like they made him the bad guy, and because he worked the scene, he was an easy target. You're right, they don't have that here. Michael J. Brown, so let's go down the road of the defense team is going to say this was planted. Somebody wanted to frame Kohberger for this. If they don't have somebody with that animosity, an axe to grind, whatever, is it just going to fall flat?
Yeah, Julie, it's going to be a tough sell, the plant part of it. Again, I want to stress, and I'm not the attorney on this, and they know the best, but I think the better approach is probably, hey, this guy could have touched it. It could have been transmitted 3 times over to get onto the sheath. Whose DNA is on that glove? That's a bloody glove. Whose DNA is on that railing? That's a bloody handprint. And it is not Kohberger. It is not the defendant. So, yeah, his DNA could be everywhere and anywhere, but it's really going to be about the corroborative evidence. Is there other evidence that's going to establish his presence in the home? And I know there is some, because that's what's going to really nail that DNA home, as opposed to give the defense an out here.
I like what you're saying there, Michael. The other DNA, who else was in that house? Big party house, doors unlocked. There are no signs of forced entry, remember, so whoever did this crime went on right in without any problems. John Phillips, do you think we're going to see perhaps a combination of these theories where they may say that, okay, somebody could have planted it, or maybe it, he just touched it, and then, but wait, what about the DNA in the glove found outside of the house? And what about the DNA found on the railing inside? Are they going to point to those other specific people, you think?
Exactly. A fact alone, I don't remember who said this, but somewhere I think I stole it from somebody else's closing argument, but a fact alone is like a one-legged chair. It's not going to stand up on its own. You need other supporting facts to be able to make the chair stand up. And so they've got to figure out, as a defense, certainly we can just talk in black letter law and reasonable doubt, but that chair's got to stand up. You've got to have other pieces of evidence to show how or why Kohberger was the one who happened to have this planted sheath laying next to a victim.
Exactly. Well said, John. I've got a clip of that traffic stop where Kohberger and his dad are driving on home back to PA. Let's take a look.
He's been a little bit wishy-washy on the DNA on the knife sheath itself. You don't get to claim Fourth Amendment standing and then just say, well, that may be my DNA, but I have no idea how it got there. We have a defendant who is trying to get the best of both worlds. He's trying to say, well, it's not my DNA and the state can't prove that, but he's also trying to say that he has Fourth Amendment standing. And that is not how the Fourth Amendment works.
He was right up on the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
We're going to actually well, we're coming from WSU.
Okay, so I'm wondering if Kohberger's dad could come into play here at all with this defense theory. So Michael J. Brown, hear me out. So we remember the DNA, touch DNA on that snap showed that it was the spawn of Papa Kohberger who touched it. Do you think there's any way the father could be helpful to the defense if it was his K-bar knife, or if it went missing from his house? I don't know, anything you can think of that dad could do as a witness? And I'm kind of just, you know, I don't have a set plan in mind. I'm just wondering, as I look at him and I think, might they use him as a witness some way, somehow? What do you think, Michael?
Julie, I don't know the likelihood ratio that was determined, or at least suggested by the prosecution on this actual sheath. I don't know the ratio. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if it's not a great ratio, then clearly, as the father, he could be the donor. And I don't know if it was mitochondrial or nuclear. I'm not sure, so I don't want to speak out of school. But listen, if they have an opportunity to present some explanation for that DNA and it's not Kohberger's, certainly I think the defense would go forward. This Ann Taylor, who's the lead defense attorney, she's been very zealous. She's done a great job to this point representing her client. So I'm sure they'll explore any opportunity they have at trial.
Yeah, great points. And boy, do you know your stuff, Michael J. Brown? You've tried so many homicide cases while you're firing off these terms. You know what you're looking at. We're going to leave it here for now and see what the next filings reveal as this case gets closer to trial in August. Michael J. Brown, John Phillips, stand by, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next. Let's bring back in Michael J. Brown and John Phillips. Oh, boy. Oh, John Phillips, you see a lot of cases with marital problems. My goodness. What did you think when you heard about this one?
Okay, so here we go. I heard about this one from Joe Exotic. So they covered...
Your client, for anybody who doesn't know, you represent him.
Right. So they covered Joe Exotic's zoo, and Jeff Lowe filled Aaron with a bunch of lies. And like took him across the park, and like they had Joe committing murders that that never existed. And so, you know, at a point, Ghost Adventures was on our hit list of possible people to sue for defamation. And so when all of this kind of as the world is going crazy, came full circle, and now Aaron's a part of a murder for hire himself, you know, Joe was like, ha, 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 that's what you get. I always, you know, take the approach from the victims, like, wow, you know, and to you know, then you loop in the prison phone and texting a prison inmate about, you know, his connections to murder for hire. This one is pure sensationalism and fascinating.
Wow. So we didn't know that. We learned something else new. Joe Exotic and Aaron Goodwin have beef, is what you're telling us.
They do. They certainly do.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Joe Exotic breaking the news to you, John. How about it? Michael J. Brown, how much trouble is Victoria Goodwin in that they've got these messages going both ways? Like, why you should write to Grant Amato? I have no idea. She's looking to leave her marriage. Why she finds that guy, but she did. What do you think is going to sink her in all this?
Yeah, John hit it on the head. I mean, the text messages are so damning. The lesson to be learned for these folks is you don't communicate with people in jail. Everything is monitored, the phone calls, the messagings, the letters. So they are extremely damning. The only defense attorney hat, the only thing I did think of is renunciation. I only say that because that's buyer's remorse, right? That's the late term for buyer's remorse, because although all of this was done, I think, in October and the end of last year, apparently there's postings of them happy couple, everything's great. So renunciation is if you back off that crime and take all steps to try to prevent it from happening, That's a defense. So I don't know if that's something out there, but that just came to my mind because things may have turned, or it simply could have been a facade, and she still was looking to go forward. But she's in a lot of trouble. Yes.
Yes, Michael J. Brown. This is why you're a high-profile criminal defense attorney. What you just said, I have to tell you, I was up late last night trying to figure out how this plot was foiled, and I couldn't find anything to show me that it was. In terms of reporting out there, so we don't know. Like you said, they may have decided buyer's remorse, not going to go through with it. Well, all we know is that there was a certain day where Grant, creepy Grant in his prison cell is texting whoever the hitman is, telling him where Aaron Goodwin was and his hotel in California and asking whether it's done. So renunciation might be what Victoria goes with. Thank you both for such great analysis. As always, John Phillips, Michael J. Brown, you guys are the best. We have to let you go, and we got to continue on to Court TV Live. That is it for opening statements.